Hey there, welcome to the next episode of Voice AI podcast, where we discuss the future of voice AI. Today, I'm very excited to host Jordan Dearsley, who is the co-founder and CEO at Vapi AI. Welcome, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm happy to be chatting again. It's been a little while since we got the chance to connect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a year ago, and I think you were one of the first, if not the very first, guest to the podcast. So
Right.
it's exciting to have you back.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And hey, the newsletter's still ripping. We have the whole team subscribe to it. It's part of like the employee onboarding is to subscribe to your newsletter. So it's so great.
nice, nice. Nice. Yeah, that's the intention. Hey,
Cool.
look, like I think you guys have been baking a lot. A lot has been happening in the last year. I thought it would be great to catch up and give an update to the folks. But before we start, actually, let me do a quick sort of summary of what Vapi does. So Vapi, an SF-based startup, offers a platform for building and deploying end-to-end AI-powered voice agents.
Right.
It offers voice AI for developers. It's like Twilio, but for voice AI, right? And Vapi raised 20 million Series A funding just recently. Congrats.
Thanks.
And Vapi serves industries like finance, healthcare, and travel, and probably more. But
Cool.
this is what ChatGPT gave me, so I'm not
Oh
too.
wow, ChatGPT knows who we are. That's cool.
I mean,
Nice.
I edited the Twilio part, like
I
it
see. I see. Nice. Cool.
cool. So yeah, congrats on the funding. That's very very cool. Yeah, what do you guys have been up in the last
Yeah, it was definitely
year?
um, a very crazy year for our entire team. I'll kind of start from maybe I'll just start from mostly the beginning. That would probably be best. But we started when me and my co-founder were working on an AI note taker, maybe like we started 3 or 4 years ago. It's called Superpowered. We grew it to 500,000 in revenue. It was like a sustainable business. It broke even. And just as it broke even, we were like, we really don't like working on calendar apps. What are we doing? And so we moved to SF. We pivoted the company. And in that pivot, it was a difficult time. And so I made an AI therapist to go on walks with for like 2 hours a day. I hooked it up like a Twilio phone number with DeepGram and 4.0 or 3.5 at
Yeah.
the time, and all that. And I was like, wow, this is so great. I can actually like talk, and it's a different experience than text. It's way better. And so that slowly turned into a platform for developers and startups and various other larger companies to build their own voice agents on top of. And over time, the product got more complex with more configuration and better infrastructure and higher reliability. And then we launched in March of last year, on Product Hunt. And then immediately, actually, it wasn't immediate. It was kind of like we launched a Product Hunt. It was like a normal Product Hunt launch. I've launched a Product Hunt maybe 6, 7 times. And there was nothing like incredibly special about this launch. But following the launch, it was just like constant growth, like a heartbeat, like every month. And coming from like what we achieved in 3 years with Superpowered, like our past company, it took like a month. It was like absolutely unheard of.
Mm.
And I think it just speaks
You
to like
mean like in terms of revenue or like
terms of
customer
revenue.
signups? Revenue,
Yeah,
okay.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and no matter what we did, we were just like tripping and falling, and there was organic growth just like coming in, and like completely out of our control, which is honestly a problem we're trying to solve now. Is we're trying to get in control of our growth to make it more deterministic. But it was cool, but it was also extremely stressful to try to scale infrastructure with such a small team. Like we're like 5 people for a long time, and looking for infrastructure engineers to help us scale, and trying to support all these customers who also needed support, like getting up on the platform. And so it was like 7 days a week, like 100-hour weeks for like months, up until maybe later this year when we finally got our shit together. The team has now grown to maybe 20 or 25 people. We now have funding. And so we can invest in things like reliability and like strategic projects and hiring a better team. And so that's kind of where we're at now. It's like we now have everyone firing on full force. We coordinate the whole team towards our like vision for what we want to build this year, and just working hard on also go to market to kind of go after the enterprise segment that we want to go for. And so it's this transition from like indie devs to serving startups, now to serving like enterprises.
So can you just give an outline of what the platform does today as for the
Yeah,
audience?
yeah, totally. The way to think about us is we're everything in between models and then getting voice agents to production behind the phone, talking to customers. So that includes everything from the model orchestration to the infrastructure to the actual conversation flows to the data integrations, all the way up to like the telephony and plugging into the end interface. So all that stuff, we take care of it. We do almost everything for our customers ourselves with some forward deployed engineering, or they can just go into our platform self-serve and set themselves up and then take it from there.
And the audience are developers, right? Like people who build apps.
It's a mix, honestly. We do see a lot of developers on the platform for sure. A lot of like startups, especially like YC startups, are built on top of us. But we do see less technical folks. It's kind of like the more technical folks find us, and then the less technical folks kind of take over and do the configuring, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned like indie developers, startups, and then enterprise.
Okay.
Is it seems like you guys are like 1 year old company.
Yeah.
Why the rush to enterprise? Is that like really happening?
Yeah,
And,
totally. I
and
mean,
okay.
I don't know that a developer. It's a very shaky place right now to be building a pure developer platform on top of AI models, because you're then
Mm,
competing against open source. You're then competing against competitors who want to drive you down on price. Like you're basically competing on cost when you're serving these developers, which is fine if things were moving a bit slower. But given the speed at which things move, it's not like a secure place to be. A secure place to be is like where things move slower, which is in enterprise.
interesting. So you see the trend that there
Like
is a pull.
developers are still essential, like to everything that we do, and our
Sure.
platform is built to be engineering and developer first. But it's more like the focus is enterprise. Now, how can we give that back to the developer community as we build it?
Mhm. And what's the distinction between like developers or startups and enterprise in terms of the requirements when it comes to voice AI, right? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean that's
are
a
the
great.
new that?
They, they are surprisingly aligned. I mean, for developers, they just want something that's extremely configurable, where they can control every piece of the pipeline, every piece of like the agent configuration, everything via API. Enterprises, surprising, like there's like a mid-size enterprise that actually just needs a completely different product, which is like no code and all that kind of stuff. And then as you go larger, then actually the complexity comes back, and they want deep API integrations. They want something their engineering team can work with. So there's kind of like this chasm in the middle that we're not totally focused on serving, this mid market segment. And that's where you see companies like maybe like Synthflow or those folks, or I good call maybe, where they kind of serve this like
Like
middle.
no code, no code.
Yeah, SMB, like Thoughtly is actually a great example of those serving that
Okay.
segment. But I think for us is we have this edge where we're developer first, which means like we can flex to more complex business requirements on the enterprise end. And then of course, like you have the SOC 2, you have the compliance, you have the data security, you have like on-prem deployments that are sometimes required, which is all stuff that we provide too. Yeah.
You already have like on-prem sort of.
Yeah,
Well,
big
that's
pain in the ass,
yeah.
honestly, to do it well and to support it, but it definitely is worth it.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
And I think like so obviously reliability of the models, right? Is there like how do you provide that? Like how do you guardrail this? This
Yeah, yeah,
I guess like that's the biggest issue that comes when
yeah. And I mean,
for
I guess it connects with your previous question about like how developers are different from enterprises. Where enterprises actually, what sets them apart is they do really want guardrails in their models. They want like step-by-step conversation workflows. They want to make sure it always like verifies a patient's identity before telling them they have like some very sensitive disease, right? Like that is super critical. Yet, I think a lot of startups right now in the AI space are completely waving their hands and just being like, "Oh yeah, it'll work, it'll work." But then they don't realize that when you actually start to deploy, post promising everything, and like then the issues start to come up where 1 out of 100 calls it like skips a question or something like
Mm,
that, or it hallucinates, and that completely destroys all confidence and halts the deployment by like a month if something like that happens. Because then we need to go to legal review, we need to get their confirmation again, and this is like a big mess. And
Mm.
so, but you'd be surprised. One of the things that our developers struggle with the most is also just guaranteeing model behavior. It's all the same. Like they spend all day trying to prompt these models, and it doesn't work. And they launch it in production, it doesn't work, and their customers get mad. And they're like, "What's going on?" And they try to prompt it again, and that breaks something else. It's like this like very delicate, like fragile, like Jenga maze that like you pull one thing and it breaks another thing. Um, and so on both sides of the spectrum, they both just need guardrails, conversation workflows, like controlled, deterministic conversation flow. So that's what most of our team is working on right now.
Yeah, do you have it in the platform or not yet? I mean, is
We have
that
a
something
beta.
that you provide? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have a beta in the platform right now, but we are investing much heavier in it. I think honestly, to be transparent, we've been slower to thinking about no code because we've just been so like developer first for so long that doing something like drag and drop GUI editors, we just didn't think it was that important for us. But now it is looking like that is exactly what enterprises want, is they want
Mm,
guardrails and they want ways to control those guardrails themselves.
mm. So
Yeah.
at every step they sort of chime in and say like it must do this and there must be a verification that it did this, something like that. Like
Yeah.
verification models, I
Yeah.
guess. Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the biggest things that's holding everyone back. Before it was like the actual model reliability itself, like the uptime of the models. Now that's mostly solved. The latency of the models, now that's mostly solved, and now it just comes down to like, okay, does it actually perform the business workflow it's supposed to perform and get them the conversion rate or the CSAT score that they're supposed to get to feel comfortable deploying it at scale. And so that's the
Yeah.
current challenge that we're focused on. I think we see our competitors focus on that as well. So I think everyone's come to the same realization at roughly the same time.
Yeah, Jordan, is it possible to connect other sort of APIs or do integrations with Vapi inside your platform so that
Yeah.
you can start to pull, data and so that the conversation actually is
Wow.
continuous?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, the way like our roots are very like API and modular driven. So at any point in the conversation, you can hand off the conversation to like your own custom model if you want. You can do an external API based like tool call if you want to fetch data, to like book an appointment, to like open that claim status, like whatever that stuff it is. Anything that can be interacted via API is doable by us. There are still a ton of business
Mm,
workflows that APIs don't exist for in enterprise because it's usually like human agents like typing at computers. So we're pretty excited for like computer use models to finally get
right.
there because maybe we can actually start like taking more of those workflows that are just like not API like observable.
That's a very exciting, you know, direction for sure.
Yeah, agents in general are like a very exciting development of this year. I think I saw what the hype coming out of OpenAI right now about like O3 and all that kind of stuff. It definitely is extremely exciting. I think what we're waiting for is like, okay, great, these models are extremely smart, but they're still not fast, and so like we can't use like an O3 reasoning model in
Right.
production because it can't respond within 500 milliseconds. So it's like kind of useless to us. But we're excited to see more development on those because those models, because they're larger or because they're higher performant, they can actually do a step-by-step workflow a lot more deterministically.
Yeah, there is a just today there is an open source DeepSeek R1 model has been launched, right? I don't know if you see that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that it's completely open source, like similar to O1.
We did.
That space is going to be disrupted by open source again. So
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
very optimistic. I mean, obviously, like everything is going to get cheaper, faster, and higher quality, and maybe even
Yeah,
faster than it happened in 24. So
I mean, 24 was crazy, and then like all of a sudden, 11 Labs just came out with a new model that's down to 75 milliseconds or something of latency. It's like, for context, it's usually like 400 or 500, and so like to have
okay.
that kind of a gain means we can spend more time with more accurate turn taking or like
Mhm.
more confident transcription. It's like it's a real win for like the latency budget, I guess. So yeah, we're quite excited there. In terms of honestly, yes, the models continue to evolve under the hood, and we build in a modular fashion to make sure that we can take advantage of that. But we're just not seeing a lot of development on like the conversation workflow, like layer above the models yet. And I don't think that OpenAI or any of these model providers are going to be incentivized to spend time building out this kind of stuff. I mean, hey, I could be wrong. Knock on wood. Please
You
don't.
mean
Hopefully.
like use case specific flows, right? That's what, like
Just
vertical and customer
yeah,
specific
like
flows.
vertical specific flows, but also like flows in general, like in real time.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure. Yeah, maybe they will invest in it. I don't know, but that's where a lot of our time is going because that's the single biggest thing that's blocking a lot of our enterprise deployments is just determinism.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the. I mean, there are a lot of companies now in the market, right, trying to do this, like voice AI agents, and especially in like certain verticals, like customer service and others. And there have been like there are a couple of companies that have used like older approach, non-generative AI approach. What are the trends that you see, like generative AI versus like non-gen AI sort of
Yeah,
comparisons, right?
Al.
Especially from enterprise perspective.
I think it seems like the non-generative companies, like IVR providers. I mean, of course, you have like the large, like Genesis and whatever. Um, they've just had a longer, and then there's like the mid-level ones, but they just had a lot more time to get in front of enterprise than we have. So they have this like distribution advantage where like they're already everywhere. And so anytime we go in, it's like, okay, now we have to prove that we're better than these guys. And
Sure.
I am confident just based on the nature of generative models that we can blow them out of the water. It's just it's more the the struggle of getting in front of them and then showing them that it works and then integrating and then making sure the calls are actually
Yeah.
deterministic enough. Like that's the thing. I can guarantee within like a day or two, for 90% of calls, we will outperform. But for those 10% of calls, we will severely underperform due to
Mm.
hallucination. And so it still is not quite good enough until we get to a point where we're confident that we have the correct guardrails in place to make sure that we can perform at the same level as those IVR providers in terms of like determinism while still being as generative as people.
And but do you see like more demand and interest from enterprise towards Gen AI type solutions
Um,
when it comes to IVR and others?
yes, for two reasons. First, they think that they can just improve their like raw conversion rates or CSAT scores or whatever just by having a better experience because everyone hates the IVR. Like if a call touches an IVR system, even on the way to a human, the the customer satisfaction scores, even put them like on a 1 to 5, might go from like a 4.5 to like a 2.5. Just if it
Mm. Just
touches like
because of IVR?
a system like dialogue flow on the way to a human, it just ruins the interaction. So, and that has downstream impacts on like LTV and whatever else the metrics they're trying to drive. So one is metric driven. The second is control driven. So these companies, a lot of their revenue like relies on the phone. And so if their revenue relies on the phone, of course they want more control over those flows and everything like that. And the thing is, a lot of these IVR providers, they have abstracted away a lot of the control flow and made it really hard for people to make changes to them. So like you have to submit a scope of work, they'll get back to you in like 3-4 weeks, and it's not really like an A/B test either. So it's like, and so like they can't basically like what Mixpanel did for like product analytics or Amplitude did for product analytics, that needs to be done for like the phone, if that makes sense. With these sort of like generative agents, like we need better observability with like 100% observability, like every single call, how they're all going, and we need to know when we make changes to these flows, like what the fuck happened, right? And
Sure.
so that's super critical as well. So those are those two pieces: one, improving actual metrics, and two, better, I guess, observability and control over those
Like
metrics.
like version control, like staging, production, things like those.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Because
I guess like this will be
that's
part of your platform at some point, right? It just
yeah.
cannot
I mean,
be without it.
that's that's what we're trying to like figure out right now is like, okay, like what are all the primitives needed for conversation flows, and then how are we going to design and build these things on top to work for kind of like the developer community and work for like the less technical folks on the team who are like more analysts who are going to be like dragging and dropping stuff instead. So it's kind of like two personas to satisfy because I think within enterprises the technical organizations are getting much more powerful, if that makes sense, because they're starting to be able to wield AI, and so their budgets are growing generally, and so you need that IT teams like sign off to actually get the deal done, and you need the actual end like champion who's looking after the call center or is in charge of operations. You kind of need both personas satisfied, so you need a very technical product that serves the engineering team's needs and like the less technical stuff to serve the operations team's needs, to have any chance of landing.
Yeah. I think Twilio had some observability product. I don't know, like you can integrate into your platform or you need to build something like that. But yeah, I mean they have been traditionally providing these Lego boxes, right? And I guess like that's gonna be your path as well. It's probably there is no way around it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Twilio did. You probably have better insight than me, like
I
what they
think
did
it's
on the
called like Twilio Insights or some voice
insight.
insights.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure, like, or I mean, just generally, like how they approach enterprise. I don't know. I heard they were quite late to serving enterprises as
Yeah,
opposed to
that's
like
true.
their self-serve developer kind of motion. It's still like
Yeah.
not that great. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, we if you map out the arc, like we're definitely starting like way earlier on the enterprise stuff and enterprise focus than Twilio. Yep.
Yeah. Look, I think this is very, very exciting. You're basically operating at the state of art, the age.
It's
It's
cool.
always great to
Yeah.
catch up with you and share notes. And I think like the audience enjoys this as well. Uh, yeah, maybe we should do this like every year, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah. That'd be we can do it. We can
did.
do a year in review or something like that. That'd be cute.
You know,
Yeah.
last time we talked, like you were all about latency. Oh my God,
Yeah.
latency, most important
Yeah.
thing.
That was like we spent because before that call, I'd spent 8 months on latency, just latency,
Oh, really?
and now it
Wow.
just comes for free, if you can believe it. And so now, like once you can make them talk like people, it's like okay, how do you make them work like people? And now that's like the biggest challenge, is making them actually do what they're supposed to do, which surprisingly is quite hard. So I'm hoping when we chat in a year from now, not only will we have agents that work as better than people, but also like there's better tooling on top of them so that you can do really advanced things like know how every single call is going and then running experiments like all that kind of crazy stuff, to kind of bring
Oh,
the thought to
yeah,
this end.
you're gonna be like, okay, like last 8 months we have been working on reliability, and
Yeah,
now it's a thing of a past. It just comes
now
for free.
product really. Yeah,
Now it's
yeah.
the product. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, very cool, Jordan. Thanks so much for joining and sharing your
Yeah,
insights.
thanks man, I really appreciate it.